Hi, my name's Nurse Phil and welcome to Support Worker Club. Great to have you here. Today we're doing night school and we're going to be talking about chest compressions and a bit more depth than what you normally get in class, so we can go in a bit more detail of what you can expect with how to do chest compressions and why do we do chest compressions, so we can give you a bit of insight. So thank you for all joining me tonight. It's great to see you all here. We've got a good crowd through. You can see some people from the Sunshine Coast and from Toowoomba there, so that's good. So welcome. So we'll get into it. So with chest compressions, they are the most vital part that we can do to save someone's life. I know from my 30 years experience in emergency and intensive care, the people we get that have a cardiac arrest out in the community, so that's when their heart stops out in the community, their best chance of survival is when they come in and had really good chest compressions and got oxygen early. They're the ones that really do well and thrive on getting that good early oxygen to their body. So it really is vital that we perform the best CPR possible and doing our chest compressions to the maximum efficiency we can to give them the best chance of survival, because that's why we're doing it. It is like, I know a lot of people that I've taught CPR to, and we do our 2-minute chest compressions of just purely chest compression tests, nothing else, that they do struggle after about a minute, and we're not getting 100% right. They're starting to fall. Don't stop, don't give up, keep pushing through and keep working on getting 100% every time, because that's the only thing that will really work. So that's why the overarching reason why we're doing chest compressions. So just a bit more detail on it. So I've got a little bit of a board here. I'll just do a bit of a board so we can see. So with chest compressions, two main things we want to do is give oxygen. So we want to give oxygen and we want to provide nutrients to cells. All right, so we want to give the oxygen and provide nutrients to the cells because that's how they survive and that's how they work. So we have vital organs in our body, and the vital organs mean that they're the organs that if any of them don't work, that means a person will die. So we're talking about the brain, talking about the heart, we're talking about the lungs, liver and the kidneys. So any of those that don't work, then the person won't be able to survive. They need those to actually work. So we need to give the oxygen and the nutrients to those cells to get them to work properly, so we can make sure that we've got the best chance of survival, help them live and get back to life. But blood doesn't just give us those things, it needs to take away stuff as well. So we call these the wastes, the things that the body doesn't need because they're a waste and they'll become toxic. So toxic means that the cells will start to die if those things stay around in their body. So that's why we need the blood to circulate and get around the person's body, because otherwise those blood cells will keep all the waste and the toxins in there, and they'll start to kill off all the cells. And that's why people end up dying, is because of that waste product staying around the cells and slowly killing them off. So we need to stop that. So the things that they need to get rid of is, I'll do a line, there's carbon dioxide, and the acid. So they need to get rid of the carbon dioxide and the acid that builds up and get that moving out of the body. So that gets circulated through the blood, and we get that out through our breathing and our kidneys. But we need to get that going so we can get the new blood with more oxygen and more nutrients. So it's a big circle. So it's a big circle that goes around all the time. So that's the loop of the way it works. So that's a continuous thing, and that's why our heart's beating all the time, to do those functions to make it work for us. So why we're doing the chest compressions is, I've got a picture of our heart. So this is our heart. So we have here, we've got our little, it's called the right atrium under here, goes to our right ventricle, and then goes up to the other side. So then it comes back out, then it goes down the left side. So if I take this all off, I can show you. So see, you've got the right atrium there is very small, and the right ventricle is very small, and then the left side is really fat. So you've got the right atrium up here, right ventricle, and then the blood goes up here and in this aorta to the rest of the body. So what we want to do is keep the blood flowing from in here up into there, and then come back down and then through the body and out the aorta. So that's the way we want the body to go around and get the blood to flow through that person. So what we're trying to do is we're squashing. So we're going to squash the heart. So if I put this back on, our squashing is going to mimic what the heart would do. So that's its job, is to mimic what the heart will do. So we will push down on top of the heart like that. So it squashes the heart, but then we've got to relax it to get the blood in. So when we push down, we squash it. When we're putting our hands up, we let it relax and let the blood flow back into the heart. That is why we need to make sure that when we're pushing down, that we actually lift our hands back up. Because a lot of people I see when they're doing it is they push their hands down and they come up a little bit, but don't come up all the way. When you don't take your hands all the way off the chest, you don't let the new blood come in. So if we keep this squashed and don't relax, we're not allowing the blood to come back in. So what happens is, back to our chart here, is we can't get the oxygen and nutrients going to the cells, and we can't get the carbon dioxide and acid coming back out of the cells. So we stop this working. If we just stop this working, then the person can't survive. So we need to make sure that when we're doing our chest compressions, when we push down, we need to come all the way up, okay? So we need to make sure that's why we're doing it, because then otherwise we're not getting as much blood back in, so we're not being as effective at saving that person's life because we're not getting the compressions done properly. So that's sort of the physiology of why we're doing chest compressions. The other thing we need to do is know where we're actually doing it on a person's body. So I've got my trusty Annie here. So I'll just put it up here so we can see. So the heart sits. So if I grab the heart, okay, I'll grab her up so we can see on the screen. So the heart sits over the left side. Most people, there are some people that have it on the other side, but their heart sits about here on somebody. The proportions aren't the same because Annie's probably heart's a little bit smaller than the model, but it's about there. So that's what we're trying to squash down. So we're trying to get the heart to be compressed. So what we need to do is work out our landmarks on the person's body of where we're going to actually do it. So if I have a look and the heart's about here, we need to push down on the middle of their breastbone, because that's a hard surface. And then their vertebrae at the back, the vertebrae that's at the back here is hard. So what we have, I get our model again, we have our, this hand's the back, and this hand's the breastbone or the sternum, and they're pushing, that's what we're pushing down. We're pushing that together to get the heart to squash and relax. So we need to find out where's the breastbone. So the breastbone's right in the middle, and because the spine is right in the middle, okay, when they squash together, they squash evenly, all right? So we need to put our hands right in the middle of the chest. Actually, that works back better here, doesn't it? Let's have a look. So we got better here, yeah, that looks good. So what we'll do is we go, here's the chest right in the middle. So we don't do finger markings anymore. We used to do a lot of like measuring and protracting, you know, where's our hand going to go? This is an emergency situation. The quicker you can get CPR started, the more chance the blood flows around their body, the better chance of their survival. So we need to be prompt and get this done quick. So what they say these days, and if you have a look at the Australian guidelines for chest compressions from ANSCOL, we have it down. If you have a look down in our notes for this, you'll see it there, is they go between the nipples, because between the nipples is about where your heart is. And if you go right in the middle, that's where the breastbone is, so we can squash and push it. But not everyone has nipples up in the right spot where you can aim for. So some people, especially elderly women, then their breasts sag down, or if they're big obese men, their breasts come out to the side, and so the nipples aren't in any way you can look at it. So people go, hey Phil, so how do I look and find the spot where to go? And it's like, well, really good question. What we do is we aim for under the armpits, because the armpits don't move. Your armpits are always in a pretty similar arrangement. So we go for under the armpits, and then we put our hand in the middle. So we want to put our hand, if I lay the person down, I want to put one palm in the middle of there, so right in the middle of their chest, like so. And then we'll put the other hand, so we'll put one hand, and then that guides us to put the other hand over the top. So if we put one hand on, then I put the other hand over the top, okay? So it looks that way from that side. So if I have it here, I'll just roll this down. So we put it on here and I'll show you. There. I'll put one hand on top, then I lock my other hand in here, and I'll stand up because that's a better position. And then I use the heel of my palm to be on there, not the whole thing. Heel of my palm is right in the middle of the chest. So then I can push down, and then I can push up and down and get it moving. So that's where we want our palm of our hand to be. Now that's for an adult with two hands. With a child, we just have one hand. So up to 8 years old, you put your other hand on your wrist like so. And if we have a baby, when we have a baby, let me just get you back up again. So when we have a baby, what we do is have two fingers in the middle of the chest, but we still push down a third of the chest to make sure that we get it. So that's how we do it for chest compressions, of where we put our hands and how our hands are placed. Now, the other things we need to do is make sure that we push down a third of the chest depth. The reason we want to do that is that we squash the heart enough that we actually get the blood to go around into the head and into their lungs and into their body. And then when we relax, the blood can come back to the heart again. So we're going to make sure that we're pushing down a third, and then that we're coming up. So we push down a full third, and then we come up. Keep our hand rested on, but don't keep it half squashed. Okay. Now, if we have a look this way, what people do is, I'll stand up and see if I can do this, is people try and get their hands and just use their hands. Put your whole body over the top and use your whole body to push down onto their chest. It will help you go longer with chest compressions because it is very physically demanding to do chest compressions. You want to go as long as you can, and you want to be able to sustain good chest compressions until help arrives, till an ambulance comes or someone else can take over and help you out. So that's why we lean right over the chest and use all your muscle groups instead of your little arm ones, because your arms only are little muscles. They're not as big as your whole body putting some weight through it. So you can push down and make sure we get good compressions. So I hope that's given you some good advice there and a bit of help into a bit more depth of why chest compressions are so important. This next part, we're going to talk about why we do it at a certain rate. Why is it that our compression rate is at 100 to 120? And people go, oh, but we can go faster than that. And people say, oh, no, I go a bit slower. It's like, no, you need to do it because this has been scientifically researched for over 20 years now. Since 2000, they've really got into international research, and every 5 years they've published new results. And the effective chest compression rate is between 100 and 120. The reason they want that is if you go below 100, we know that not every compression is effective. So if we can do 100, we know we get about 65 to 80 good ones. And there's 20 that ain't going to be that good, but we're still aiming to get 100%. If we go faster than 120, what happens? We're squashing the heart so much and not allowing it to get new blood in. We're doing what the heart has gone into a cardiac arrest for anyway, because sometimes the heart goes into cardiac arrest because it beats too fast and the blood doesn't go around. So that's why we need to go at 100 to 120 to give the heart a chance to open up, let the blood flow through, and then we squash again to make it go around the body. Because if we don't do that and we go too quick, we're not doing anything. There is nothing happening. The blood's been squashed and you're not lifting off to let more blood through. So that's why it's really imperative that you practice a rate and you go from 100 to 120, and so you can understand how to do it properly. So that's why we have a chest rate. So we go rate from anything from 100 to 120, in between there's fine. So if you do it 110, you're pretty much in the middle. So it's pretty good. The way to remember, because people go, well, if I'm doing 120 compressions a minute, how many compressions a second is that? And it's like, well, it's 2 compressions a second. So, and people haven't done 2 compressions a second before a lot of times. Like, when would you do something 2 times a second? It's really not a very common thing. So people have this misconception that it's super fast. It is quick, but it's not as fast as you think. So it's a good idea to get a metronome or something like that you can actually use, so you can count it and tick along with it. So you can go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and count along and practice going from 100 to 120. The other thing you can do is if you have a second person and they've got the AED there for you and you've gone through your first sequence, the AED has a metronome on it. So a metronome's a counter, and it will beep every time that you need to do chest compressions. So that gives you a bit of good reason of how to do your chest compressions. So people ask too is, why don't why do we count? Why don't we use the songs, like Staying Alive, we like Staying Alive, or another one, Bites the Dust. And the simple fact is, it's when you're doing your chest compressions to your breath ratio. How many breaths do you do to your compressions? Now, we all know that it's 30 compressions to 2 breaths. But if I'm doing staying alive, how do I know when I've got to 30 compressions to do my 2 breaths? And then that 30 compressions to 2 breaths is considered to be 1 cycle. So how do I know if I've done 1 cycle? So if I'm doing 30 compressions for 2 breaths, so I've got my 30 compressions for 2 breaths equals 1 cycle. What happens is we know that about 5 cycles will equal 2 minutes of CPR. So depending how fast you go, it can be a little bit, it's usually 90 seconds to 2 minutes, round about that. But it gives us a guide, because we're not watching our watch all the time, we're actually doing CPR. So when the ambulance come and they ask you how long you've been going for, you go, oh God, I don't know. You can count how many cycles that you've done. So if you've done 5 cycles in 2 minutes, so you can tell them that. If you've been there for 10 minutes, you've done 25 cycles. It's a lot. But some people, that's how far you have to go, even more. Depends. Some ambulances might take 20 minutes to get to you. So that will give you a guide of how many cycles you'll do. So if you don't know exactly, you can say, look, I've done 25 cycles, I've done 30 cycles. Then the ambulance can work out how long you've actually been going for. So that gives an indicator. That can you see why, if you're doing a counting, it's much more efficient and you can see what's going on compared to if you're singing a song? Because if you're singing a song, you're not getting the exact amount of compressions to your breath ratio, and then you're not giving enough oxygen and you're not getting the blood flowing through with good oxygen to their body. So I hope that helps as well. Now, with all that, that's a lot of what we do. So I hope that's given you some really good information. Also with chest compressions, when you start to feel tired, if you've got someone else, because you know what you're doing and you've seen, you've got the good action, you can coach someone else. So you don't stop, you keep getting compressions going, but you can get the second person to put their hands on the opposite side of you. And then as soon as you've done your 30 compressions and about to do your 2 breaths, then they can take over and do chest compressions, but you don't leave them. The trick is that you stay there and actually watch them and make sure that they're doing it properly and help them count, especially someone that hasn't done any first aid or CPR, which one day I hope that everyone in Australia does it and that we do it regularly, because we can save anyone doing it. And it's really should be part of your school as well, is being able to do first aid and CPR. But what I'm trying to get on is that you can, even though you might be exhausted, you can still coach them and make sure they're doing the correct technique, that they've got their CPR working properly. So that's really important that we get that sorted out. Other than that, with chest compressions, one of the big scary things that happen is sometimes when you're doing chest compressions, so sometimes when you're actually pressing on someone's chest, they'll wake up. Now, this could be a good thing. It could be that you're doing really good chest compressions and you're really getting the blood going up into their face and their brain. So it's made them wake up, which is really good. But it's also they get frightened, and because they don't know where they are, they start punching and moving their arms around. So what I usually do is I'll rest my hands there and stop compressions. And if they stay awake and keep thrashing and talking for a good 30 seconds to a minute, I know that they've come good. Whatever we've done, we've got their heart back. It should be coming good. If I keep my hands there and they go back unconscious and their eyes closed and they all stop moving, they're only awake because of my CPR, which means I need to get back on and start doing chest compression. So I don't leave my hands off. I leave my hands on their chest, and while they wake up and thrash around, and just wait. And if they do go back unconscious, I start doing chest compressions again, and I do not stop. So then I go back and do my 2 minutes of CPR and just keep going, because that is what's keeping them alive. Eventually they do go unconscious when you're doing CPR, because they're not getting all the oxygen and blood flowing that they should. So that does happen. But at least you know that if they do wake up when you're first doing compressions, the reason is that you're doing really good compressions, and that you're being, you are getting the oxygen and nutrients to the body, and you are getting rid of the waste efficiently for them. So really well done. So that's it. Well, if there's any questions about what we've gone through tonight, leave me a message afterwards or put a note in the comments. More than happy to, help you through any of your situations. So give me a shout anytime. This club is for you, and this night school is for you guys, so you can understand a bit more depth and get a real appreciation of what it takes to do your job effectively and well, and then gives you confidence that when you're out there, you've got that bit extra knowledge, that bit deeper knowledge, that you can understand what's going on. So really enjoyed tonight. I hope you got a lot out of it, and thank you to Annie. She was marvelous tonight. Good to see, and look forward to seeing you on our next night school. We're going to be running these regularly, and if you've got any topics you want to cover too, please let me know. More than happy to get the topics that you want and talk about whatever you need us to talk about. So from me and all the crew at Support Worker Hub, we really appreciate and valuable your time and all the things that you do for your clients. That we appreciate what you're doing out there. It's an amazing job, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care for now. I'm Nurse Phil, and I wish you every success and good health. Take care.